Good evening, brothers. If you do this long enough, volunteering for the fraternity, you meet a lot of people, a lot of brothers from across the country that you become fond of, that you begin to admire for who they are, what they stand for. And certainly tonight, I have the great opportunity to introduce, and you will have the great opportunity to hear from, one of the great brothers in our fraternity. Speaking from personal experience, I can assure you that you will remember Jerry Fields' conversation tonight. Our brother providing this evening's keynote is exceptional and unforgettable. When we changed the College of Chapters to our current model 12 years ago, he was the first brother that we called to address the commanders of Sigma Nu. He grew up poor, literally and figuratively pulled himself up by his own bootstraps from the dirt floor of his home in West Texas. He was the founder of his Eta Tau chapter at Southwest Texas State University, now Texas State. He was the commander of his chapter. He started his own business and built it into a multi-billion-dollar operation in the face of multiple obstacles and repeated setbacks. He built a beautiful family with an incredible woman and life partner. He stood firmly by her side with devotion as she courageously battled a terminal illness. He didn't seek, but recently found new love. And then, a little more than a year ago, while out for a walk with his wife, he was hit head-on by a Ford F-150. Yet, he's here with us tonight, flying in on his own plane with two of his collegiate brothers from his own chapter on board. When Sigma Nu calls, this brother always answers. He has served as a volunteer for his own chapter for decades. When his chapter strayed into dishonorable hazing, he personally took the charter off the wall himself. When his chapter was rebuilt, he was there. When Sigma Nu badly needed funds to address deferred maintenance at our beautiful headquarters that you'll see tomorrow, he was there. When Sigma Nu needed support to completely revolutionize our foundation's development program, again, he was there. He is the single largest donor to Sigma Nu fraternity. When he wakes up every day, he looks at a photograph that hangs in his bedroom that shows photos from each of our headquarters in each of the 4 seasons, a daily reminder for him of the creed of our fraternity by which he has lived his entire life. He believes in the mission of Sigma Nu and believes our country is depending on Sigma Nu to produce ethical leaders we must have to sustain our republic. Frankly, he puts his money where his beliefs are. One of his favorite sayings is, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life, and you should live it like it will be the last day." In recognition of his exceptional career and incomparable dedication and commitment to our fraternity, this brother was inducted into the Sigma Nu Hall of Fame in 2020. Unfortunately, there's this thing called COVID. Unfortunately, our grand chapter that year was postponed and then made virtual in 2021. He said that he would wait. He was not interested in appearing on a Zoom. He was scheduled to speak at the College of Chapters in 2022, our first in-person event after the pandemic. Weather intervened, his flight was delayed, and then canceled. The weather was foul from Washington, D.C. all the way through Virginia. Snow, ice, sleet, freezing rain. The roads were dangerous, and I can personally attest to that. When he called Executive Director Brad Beecham, he told Brad that he was glad that he had found a middle seat on the last flight that could get him here. He would arrive at Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. at midnight. He would get a rental car and then drive all night to Roanoke in time for his speaking engagement the next morning. Thankfully, Brad was able to convince him not to do this. But here's the point. He loved Sigma Nu so much that he was willing to do it. Because of his love for our fraternity, his dedication to your success as a commander and a chapter officer, brothers, tonight, I not only introduce our keynote speaker, but I introduce for the first time a member of Sigma Nu's Hall of Fame and one of our most exceptional brothers in the history of our great fraternity. Help me welcome Brother Jerry D. Fields.
Good. Wow, I see what you mean about these lights. As Steve told you, it's been 11 years now since I spoke to this group of people. 11 years, you go back, most of you, 10, 11 years old maximum? And a lot of things have changed in your lives over the last 10 or 11 years. Hopefully you've grown up. You found a place in your life that you went off to college, wherever they are. But a lot of things have changed in my life too, over the last 10 years, for which Steve mentioned a couple. I did lose my wife, 52 years, and I did get remarried. Those are great things. But also in the last 10 years, I was struck by lightning and almost died. In Mexico, where I had a home for 18 years, me and my brother-in-law, who's also a Sigma Nu from Edital chapter, was almost kidnapped, and we would have been dead without some very quick thinking. I crossed the ocean on my yacht from Puerto Vallarta over to Cabo. Unfortunately, we picked the wrong time and got hung up in Hurricane Pamela, the only boat in 330 miles. And last but not least, I guess, what Steve said, October the 6th, after getting married on June the 4th, I got hit by F-150. Very fortunate that I can stand here today. But let me tell you, there's a lot of things that people don't know that's in their heart that will pull you through. And as I was laying out on the sidewalk, on the street, with my new wife of 4 months, blood gushing out of my head, unconscious for 8 hours, she thought that would be the shortest marriage that maybe anyone would have. So I tell you these things because things do change, some for the better, but some for the worst. Each one of you, as you come here and you begin your journey in the position you're in, whether it be treasurer, lieutenant commander, commander, you're taking on responsibilities that are the greatest things that you may ever have to do. Could you show me the first slide? Okay, I want to know if there's anybody in this room that doesn't know the song Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. If you don't know it, hold up your hand. Great, because I didn't want to have to sing it. But let me tell you about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That little fictional character and I have a lot in common. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was not a song in the beginning, it was a storybook. And a guy by the name of Robert May wrote the book from Montgomery Ward. Where's the 2 people, 3 people from Dartmouth? May I see your hand? Where, Dartmouth University? Can't see you? Okay. He went to Dartmouth University and graduated from Dartmouth. When he got out of Dartmouth, he went to work for Montgomery Ward, writing about shirts and suits and dishes and whatever. It was cataloged this thick. But when he was young, he was small of stature, a little Jewish boy. He skipped 2 grades because he's so smart. And the whole time that he was growing up, people made fun of him. They said, you know, you're little, you're small. We won't let you play in any of our games. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, may I see the next slide? All the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph play in any reindeer games. That is the definition of hazing. It's the absolutely best definition you can when you're a kid. May I see the next slide? Here's the way it ends. Rudolph was picked by the leader, Santa Claus. What did he say? You can do this. You will lead my sleigh. That is what leadership is about, is finding the right person that takes on the responsibility of leadership. Can I see the next slide? You got a couple of words here. Smart versus wise. I asked a few of you the other day, I think it was my two fraternity brothers from my chapter. Do you know the difference between smart and wise? Well, let me assure you, right there you can look at it. It's to emphasize that someone is intelligent. Being intelligent is wonderful, but being wise takes a long time. And over the last 10 years, I've become much wiser. And I hope that each of you, as you move forward, will look and remember how smart you are, but also how wise are you? How many experiences are you going to have? How many disappointments are you going to have? Because they're there. I never dreamed I would get hit by a 150 truck and live through it. I never believed that I would live through a lightning strike, but I did. So I have 10 years of more wisdom than I had 10 years or 11 years ago when I stood before you. May I have the next slide? The difference between these two words, would and could, W and a C, rest of them are exactly the same. When it comes to leadership, would you lead? What does that mean? If I ask any one of you, would you be commander? That's one thing. If I ask you, could you be commander? Could you? Meaning that if you take that position, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that you don't fail. If you say, I could do this, the people are counting on you. They are looking to you because you said you could do it. Rudolph said he could do it, and he became famous. Now, when you look at that and you think about each aspect of your life and where you're trying to go as youngsters, you're going to have to remember the difference between would and could. Now, I'm going to tell you and go back and start talking about me, which I told Brad I would do this. I grew up, as Steve said, in a very, very poor family. My father was an oil field worker, and between the time I entered first grade in Rankin, Texas in 1951 to the time I graduated from Midland High School in 1963, I went to 32 different schools. I was never chosen. We would move from place to place. You go to a gym class. No one ever said, hey, Jerry, come over here, be on my team. I was the last one. I'd walk across and be on the team that had the last player. As I moved on through my life and got older and we continued to move, nothing changed. My personality became one that I was rejected, much like Rudolph. No one wanted Jerry Fields to play in their games. That hurts. When you're 14 years old and you begin to think, what am I going to do moving forward when I'm not wanted? When I was a sophomore in high school, we moved. The final move before I left home was to Midland, Texas. The last 3 years that I was there, I was in high school, had very few friends, And there was a couple of reasons for that. And let me tell you why. Every morning at 4:30, I got out of bed and went and picked up 500 Fort Worth Star telegrams and delivered them around the city of Midland, Texas. I would go home, I would study the 30 minutes, and then I'd get ready and go to school. When school was out, I came home, 50 reporter telegrams for Midland newspaper, delivered. 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 4:30, I would go to A.L. Davis grocery store and work until 11 o'clock at night. There was no time for me to be accepted. There was no time for me to have friends, which was okay. I'd been accustomed to that my whole life. But in 1962, I had a very unfortunate thing happen to me. I had a cast on my left leg. I went to a pep rally. I decided, hey, it'd be great if I went up to the top of this thing, a bunch of guys up there, maybe they'd accept me. I got up there, what did they do? First one started shoving all the way down. I go down 12 feet, hit on my head, crack my skull, break my collarbone and my shoulder. They took me to the hospital. I was there 7 weeks laying on my back. As I lay there thinking about my life, I began to think, what am I going to do? Where are you going to be, Jerry, 10 years from now? And I made a decision, as poor as we were, that I'd go to college. So when I got out of that year and finally graduated, the night of graduation, when all my friends, which were none, but all the other people basically that graduated with me went to Midland Country Club and had a great big party. Where did Jerry Fields go? I got in a car, drove 80 miles out to an oil field location, and worked from 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock the next morning. I did that until September the 1st before I went off to college. The only money I had to go to college was what I made, and I made enough money to pay my education. I got to Texas State University. Again, I had no friends. I was shy. I didn't think anyone was going to accept me. So I went through my freshman year basically studying, trying to make sure that I made my grades so I could stay in school. As soon as school was out, I went back to Midland, went into the oil fields again, worked during the summer, returned back to Texas State. 3 or 4 guys came walking up to me about 2 weeks after school started. Said, hey, your name Jerry? I said, yeah. He said, we noticed you last year. Said, you didn't join the fraternity. I said, yeah, that's right, I didn't. And I'll tell you why I didn't. I've been bullied, made fun of, pushed around my whole life. And let me tell you, I know about fraternities. You're not going to haze this guy. I've had all that I'm ever going to take in my life. These guys said to me, well, we're part of a new group here on campus called Sigma Nu Fraternity. We don't believe in hazing. I said, you don't believe in hazing? They said, no, our fraternity does not allow hazing. I became a Sigma Nu. Let's go back to this word, wise and smart. Smart. The smartest thing I ever did was pledge Sigma Nu fraternity. It changed my life. Sigma Nu fraternity literally changed my life. How did it change my life? It gave me the strength in my head to realize that I could do almost anything that I wanted to do. I was elected junior class president. I was elected treasurer of Sigma Nu fraternity. I was elected the commander of Sigma Nu fraternity. I was the one that accepted the charter. When I was handed that charter, it was the happiest day, I guess, that I'd ever lived in my whole life. So now here I am, a senior in college. I was junior in college, actually, and I go home that year, commander. I I go back to the oil field. 1 week into the oil field, what happens? I have an accident. I break my back. They carry me to the hospital. June the 7th. I didn't get out of there until August the 10th. And when I did, I came out in a back brace. But here's the situation that happened. I'm laying in the hospital bed, and I hear the doctor talking to my parents outside. And they say, the doctor says, "Mr. and Mrs. Fields, I don't think your son will ever walk again." And I heard that. Now, can you imagine how I must have felt? But as I lay there, basically paralyzed from the waist down, I said to myself, it's not will or would I walk again, it's could I walk again. And the answer to myself was yes, I will walk again. And here I stand before you because I had the will that this is what I'm going to do. Now, I did get to go back to college, but I had a back brace on that went from my buttocks up to my neck. It was very, very difficult. And the doctors decided they wanted to do an operation. So I dropped out of college between the first semester and the second semester and moved to Houston to have back surgery. If you've ever read forms when it comes to surgery, it scares you to death, particularly a 21-year-old. It says you might not live, you might not walk, you might not have any feeling. It goes on and on, right? So I thought, yeah, I don't know about this. So I decided not to do it. I thought, maybe I can rehabilitate myself. And I did. I spent 2, 3, 4 months doing it. In the meantime, I fell in love with a woman, and she and I got married in August. 52 years of bliss. Wonderful person. But when we got married, we lived in Houston, and I lacked 17 hours to graduate from college. So I told her, well, I'll go back and I'll go to the University of Houston and get my degree. Unfortunately, you have to get your last 30 hours from the institution if you're going to graduate from it. At least that's the way it was then, and I'm sure it's probably the same way now. But the guy that I work for came to me one day and said, "Jerry, we have an opening in San Antonio for a new manager. Would you like to move to San Antonio, Texas, and take over as the manager of that office?" Immediately I said yes without even asking my wife, and I came home and I said, "Look, we're moving to San Antonio, Texas." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because I'm going to finish my education at Texas State University." And she agreed. We moved to San Antonio January 1st. I enrolled at Texas State University on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday classes. Tuesdays and Thursday classes were at 7 a.m. in the morning. San Antonio is 50 miles away. Every morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had to get up at 5 o'clock, drive 50 miles over, spend an hour and a half in class, and get back to my job to work. I did that during the spring semester. In the summer, I went every day, 5 days a week at 7 o'clock in the morning. Fall semester comes, I do the same thing on the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and I received my degree in January of that following year. What came to me was, "Jerry, would you do that?" Well, realistically, who would want to do that, right? It was, could I do that? And I had to do it because I had to get a degree. I had to finish what I wanted to do. It wasn't something to me that was elective. It was a necessity. So I married my wife. I had already married my wife. We moved from San Antonio back to Houston, Texas. I took a job with a different company. I worked for that company for 17 years. I liked working for that company, but, I had this desire to do something different. I wanted to be more successful than what I thought I could be there. They promoted me rapidly. As a matter of fact, in 1974, they sent me to Europe to open up an office in Europe in addition to what I was doing in the United States, which was everything west of the Mississippi River. Had 13 offices that reported to me, and now I'm going back and forth from Houston, Texas to London, 3 weeks there, 3 weeks back. I did that until I could find the appropriate leader that I thought could take over my position in London. Again, gentlemen, I didn't ask the guy, would you do it? Because there were many that would. The question was, could you do it? And I looked at several people before I found that one that said he could do it. Now, in 1985, I decided to leave to start my own company. And that gave a lot of thought to that. I gave up a job in 1985. I was making a lot of money. But it wasn't where I wanted to be in my life. So I started Jerry Fields and Company, and doing the same thing I was doing, except I was competing with the company I worked for. And things went along, and we were growing the business. 3 individuals that directly reported to me came with me, and there were 4 of us now. That was Jerry Fields and Company. Each year we grew the business, became more successful, more successful, more successful. Hired additional people. And on January of 1980, let me think about this, I should know this. January of 1980, not 85, 89, I'm sorry, 2001. I lost a little track of time there. 2001, I went to my home in Wimberley, Texas. Unfortunately, I went to the municipal court to pay a non-seatbelt violation. But while I was in there, the phone rang and I answered it. It was my assistant calling me from Houston. She said, Mr. Fields, I have a disturbing message for you that was laying on your desk this morning. I said, well, read it to me. It's my CFO. The message said this: I have fallen and I cannot get up. Therefore, I resign your company. His keys to his car, keys to the office, and his credit card was laying there. I said to my assistant, what I want you to do is to call every motel, hotel within 10-mile radius of the office and see if he registered, because I think he might have committed suicide. She did that, called me back and said, no trace of him. I immediately went back to my office in Houston. Once I got there, I found out that every computer in my office was locked. No information could be taken out of the computers. My people, the employees, were sitting there saying, we don't know what happened. This individual had locked every computer that we had, put his keys, and left. I desperately tried to reach this individual for 2 days. I called his wife, and his wife says, no, I don't know where Craig is. He's not at the office? I said, obviously he's not. The 3rd day she called me, and she said, Jerry, Craig's at home. I said, he's at home? She said, yes. We found him in Ensenada, Texas, 50 miles from the Mexican border. He was running. She convinced him to return back to their home. I sent an employee of mine out to their house and told the employee that I had to talk to this individual, that I had my computers locked down, and I had to find out a way to get in. The individual I sent out there sat out there, and he said, no one answers the door. I've been up there 3 times. I said, you keep sitting there. He sat there all night. No movement. The next day, the door opens. Actually, it's the back gate out of the backyard. His wife walks out, and he calls me on Jerry, Susie just walked out of the back gate. I said, well, let me tell you what. You get over there and you find out if Craig Strawbridge is in that in the house. He goes over, approaches Susie, and she says, yes, he's in the house. Come in. As soon as the employee, who was a business partner of mine, went in, this man jumped up off the sofa and ran into the bathroom and locked himself in the bathroom. He would not come out. And I said, well, can't you get in there? Can't you get him? No. I said, well, you don't leave. He finally comes out and he says, I'm going to the psychiatrist. And the man called me, he says he's going to the psychiatrist. I said, follow them. So he followed them over to across town, went up there where the psychiatrist was. The psychiatrist and this individual had gone into the next room back. And I said, I need to talk to the psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist came out and got on the phone. I said, look, I have got to talk to this individual. My computers are locked. No, you can't talk to my client. I said, you go in with this message and find out how to unlock my computers. He came back out and he said, they cannot be unlocked. Now, in the meantime, he had given me reports at the end of the year showing that my company owed the bank $4 million, how much money we'd made during that year. And so I called my banker and I said to them, look, my chief financial officer has abruptly quit. I can't get in my computers, and I know that I owe you $4 million, but we'll get this taken care of. Immediately, this banker said to me, you don't owe me $4 million. You owe me $15.5 million. I said, that's impossible. He said, well, we're coming out for a meeting. 5 of them came out, but not the banker that I'd been dealing with. They sat in my conference room, and they looked at me, and they said, do you have the information that you shared with us that you only owe us $4 million? And I said, yes, I do. Here's a copy of it. And they looked at it and said, well, I'm sorry, it's wrong. You owe us $15.5 million. The banker you've been dealing with is no longer on this account. You will now be dealing with this individual, and I won't name his name. His first name was Roger. I'd never met the man before. But I went from the carpeted floor to the linoleum floor, to the workout room. And this individual explained to me how my company was going to be run. In the meantime, I hired on a contract basis a new CFO type person. And he desperately was trying to figure out what had happened. Well, he managed to get into the computers. And what he found when he got into the computer is this individual was keeping 3 sets of books. And there was $11.5 million of my money, or my company's money, missing. The guy from the bank said to me, Jerry, you have no further line of credit. We're locking down all your accounts receivable. Every penny that comes in will come to the bank. You have no money to pay the payroll. You're going to have to do something different. My 3 partners, me and the other 2, went and put $3 million of equity back into the company so that we'd have operating capital to move forward. This man by the name of Roger Front, which I said I wasn't going to mention his name, would call me 3 or 4 times a day. And he bothered me so badly that I was almost ready to tell him where to go, but changed my mind. But I was there one night in my office around 8 o'clock. I was really, really down because I realized I had some major problems. And I was sitting there at my desk, and I literally put my hands in my face like that. And I was ready to give up. I saw no way out of this situation. And this man that I hired, named Steve Frederick, I looked up and he said, "Jerry, are you okay?" I said, "No, Steve, I'm not okay." I said, "I can't do this. I can't continue this. I've got people calling my home, threatening my family, and I cannot do this." And all he said to me was this: "Jerry, I think that me and your other employees have more faith in you than you have in yourself right now. And Jerry, you can do this." And he turned around and walked away. And the longer I sat there, I pulled out this little card right here, this one, and I stared at it. Jerry Dean Fields, Edita, initiate number 4, as of April the 23rd, 1966. The longer I looked at this, the more I understood that I could not give up. I called this individual, the banker, on the phone, and because he's a workout specialist, he was there at 8 o'clock at night. And I said, "Let me tell you something. You know, I'm going to pay you back every penny I owe you because I'm a man of honor. And honor means everything to me. But one thing I don't want you to do, I do not want you calling me anymore. I don't want you to bother me anymore. And if you can't do that, you come out here in the morning, the keys will be in the door, and you can run this company." And hung up the phone. That was in mid-April. The middle of June, that same year, I'd paid off his $15.5 million loan. I called him up and I said, "Roger, I need you to come out to my office and meet with me." He said, "Great, man, looking forward to it." I kind of chuckled to myself thinking, yeah, when did you get out of here? So he came out and he had his attorney with him, or an attorney, probably wasn't his attorney, but bank attorney. And we met in the conference room and they were congratulating me, you know, how much great we'd done and I'd paid him back the money and blah, 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 blah. And he said, "We have a new loan agreement for you, Jerry." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, here it is right here." I never even picked it up. I said, "Look, guys, I called you out here not to sign a loan agreement with you. I've already signed a loan agreement with Bank One. I want you to take that loan agreement and I want you, both of you, to exit this office immediately. I don't need you anymore. I don't want you anymore because I saved my own company. You didn't help me, you hurt me." The bank that I went with knew of this problem. And rather than give me the same bank line that I had with the other bank, they doubled the amount of credit. Why did they do that? Because they knew I could do it. They knew, they looked into my leadership ability. They looked into my past. Just like Santa Claus said to Rudolph, "You can lead this sleigh." I took this company and moved forward. And in the meantime, some of the things that I did under adverse situations, trying to keep my company alive, I became chairman of the board of the Houston Museum of Natural Science. It was the second largest visited museum in the United States at the time. I went on a McCoy Foundation board with the McCoy people out of San Marcos, Texas. I was involved very heavily in various philanthropies. And during that period of time, up until then, me and my wife, this is 11 years ago, we'd given $30 million of our money to various charities, including Sigma Nu. So now you say, well, in the 11 years, how's things changed? Well, they changed a lot. A lot is the fact that when I spoke here back in 2013, I think my contributions to Sigma Nu was $1.5 million. And I know to most of you guys, that's a very small amount of money. To me, it's a lot of money. But now my contributions to Sigma Nu is a little less than $3 million. I think it's around $2,800,000 and something thousand. But that's not the end of my contributions because I'm not dead yet. But what it means to me, I could do it. I told somebody here just the other night, I don't know, we were talking. I'm a sniper. If I were in the military, I'd be a sniper. I'd use one bullet. At the other end of that bullet, there'd be a dead person. Mission accomplished. I'll go home, eat a nice dinner, and wait for the next person that they wanted me to kill. That's the way I think. I think that way with Sigma Nu. As Steve just told you, every day of my life, basically if I'm in Houston, Texas, I look over there and I see a picture of the Four Seasons of headquarters. You'll see it tomorrow. Not the Four Seasons, but you'll see a beautiful, beautiful headquarters building. And like Steve said, and I don't mean this braggadociously, gentlemen, but I had a lot to do with that. Now, during and before this, I end this discussion about my company, my wife and I happened to go downtown one day for lunch. And on our way back at the federal courthouse, there was a trial going on. Two people that I knew, one of them was semi-friend, but more an acquaintance, I say. We went into the courtroom, and this guy was testifying on the stand. And this is something I'll never forget. His lawyer asked him a question. It had to do with rules. And the guy answered it this way. Rules are made for little people. Little people have to follow the rules. If you get to be a chairman of a huge corporation like me, those rules don't apply. That stuck with me and cemented in my brain. I asked my wife, shall we go and invest in a chair of ethics at Texas State University? She said, yes, we hold a chair in corporate responsibility and ethics to teach young people that are in college ethical behavior when it comes to business dealings, particularly in accounting, or it doesn't matter. Every business deal is based on ethics. And now we have an additional couple of professorships. The list goes on and on. But that's not the important thing to me. The important thing to me is not about having my name on a building. It's how I can change the people that are in the building. And just like Rudolph, the fictional character that was written by a guy that his wife was dying with cancer, just like my wife was dying from cancer. His wife died, my wife died. Robert May convinced Montgomery Ward to give him back the copyright to this book that was, it was a book about Santa Claus, about reindeer. It wasn't even a song. Once he got the copyright back, Robert May asked his brother-in-law, who was a musician, to write the words to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. No one would record it. Gene Autry finally decided to record the music. I'm going to almost bet you that very few of you in this room have any idea who Gene Autry is. He's a singing cowboy. The very first Christmas, he sold 2 million records. Now here this guy that wrote this little storybook from Montgomery Ward became wealthy. He became somebody. His song became famous. Every year it sells millions of copies. So what is Sigma Nu and what is the leadership and what am I asking you to do? I'm asking you to lead with ethical behavior. As a commander, you have to say no more times than you say yes. You cannot allow your chapter to stray. You have to be strong. You're not going to be the most popular. But believe me, if you do the things you're supposed to do and what you're learning here today, you'll be a totally different individual. Now, a couple of things I want to say about what Sigma Nu's done for me as an individual. I was down in my boat in Cabo a few years ago. This was before my last address. I'd just flown back. I was standing where they have swim with the dolphins. And there was a guy there with two little girls. And the little girls' faces were all drawn down. And I said to the man, I said, are you going to swim with the dolphins, your daughters? He said, no. We came in on a Disney cruise ship and drove 17 miles, or took a cab 17 miles out here. And I went over to buy my ticket, and they won't take a credit card. They told me to go over to the ATM machine. Went over the ATM machine, it didn't work. Now my little girls can't swim with the dolphins. And I was looking at these little girl faces. One of them was about probably 7, 8 years old, the other a little older. I reached in my pocket. I said, how much does it cost to swim with the dolphins? $100 a piece. I handed him two $100 bills. He said, I can't take that. I don't even know your name. I said, that's not the important thing. The important thing is these two little girls. He said, could I have one of your business cards? So I handed him a business card, and I left. When I got back to my Houston office a couple of months later, I had a home in Mexico, there was an envelope on my desk. And inside this envelope was a check for $200 from the man, the father of the two little girls, saying, thank you, Mr. Fields, I appreciate it very much. My daughters had a wonderful time. I wrote void on his check and put a note and sent it back to him. I said, I want you to consider to give each one of your little girls $100 and ask them if they will do something kind for someone like I did. So a few weeks go by, and I got another letter from this individual. And inside this envelope were two other envelopes, one from each little girl. Unfortunately, I don't any longer have those, but I can tell you the first one was from the youngest one, Mary. Dear Mr. Fields, I want to say thank you for allowing us to swim with the dolphins. And I thank you for sending me the $100 so that I could make a donation. I made a donation, and I can't remember the name of the company, Worldwide or something like that, for Africa. She said, with my $100, I bought 2 soccer balls, 10 fruit trees, and part of a donkey. Thank you very much. The second little girl, her note said basically the same thing, except that she had bought mosquito nets for a family. I can't remember the other things that she did, but she also bought part of a donkey. Now let me tell you, those little girls learned a valuable, valuable, valuable lesson of life. But not only did they learn it, so did I, and so did the father. Now, not too long ago, right before my wife died, I took her over to MD Anderson Hospital, and she had a checkup on her eye. The doctor said, Mrs. Fields, everything in your eye looks okay. Other than that, you should talk to your oncologist, which we had already had a visit with them. And I knew the end result was coming, but at least the eye doctor said everything's good. We leave and we fly down to Puerto Vallarta. A couple of days later, we're sitting in a restaurant and the phone rings. I happened to be in the restroom, and the phone came up as Dr. Gambos, MD Anderson Hospital. My wife wouldn't answer it because she was afraid of the message. When I got back to the table, she said, look, There's a message on here. I'd like you to listen to it. Dr. Gombos' message was, Mr. Fields, this is Dr. Gombos from MD Anderson. I need you to call me as soon as possible. This is patient related. Now, first thing that went through my wife and I's mind, that something had happened that he hadn't told us or knew about. So we called him. I said, Dr. Gombos, what's this about? He said, I don't know how to do this, Mr. Fields. I've never done this before. He said, I didn't know where to turn except to you. He said, I know you have some influence around Houston, and I wonder if you might help me with a problem. He said, I have a little girl here, 2 years old, from Kathmandu. Her mother and her father sold everything they had in Kathmandu, borrowed all the money they could borrow, and brought this little girl to MD Anderson. She's already blind in one eye, and I can't treat her anymore. The finance department at MD Anderson said they owe $127,000 and it's past due. And Mr. Fields, I don't have that kind of money. So I was hoping that you would help me raise the money. I said, well, Dr. Gombos, how quickly do you need this money? He said, by tomorrow. Tomorrow for $127,000. I said, let me call you back. So I asked my wife, Linda, what would you like to do? She said, well, I think that you already know my answer. So I called the finance department at MD Anderson, the person he asked me to call, talked to the lady. She said, I was expecting your call, Mr. Fields, but I want to tell you right now, we cannot continue to treat this little girl without payment. I said, ma'am, I understand that. I wanted to read this credit card to you. And she said, for how much? I said, for $127,000. The lady said to me, Mr. Fields, you bought yourself a ticket to heaven. The doctor treated the little girl, saved her vision. I never met them. I never talked to them. But one thing for sure, the little girl can still see. Gentlemen, that is what we're about. That's what we do. We take responsibilities. We become leaders. We don't ask for a favor. We exercise what, to me, a brother that wrote in the Delta a few editions ago. May I see the last slide, please? That must, right there. This I happened to read the Delta from cover to cover on every edition, and I remember seeing this in there. I think it was I don't remember now what it was. I think it was 21, but maybe I'm wrong. So I picked up Delta and I reread this right here. And this is stand up. You can read it. Stand for honor. Stand for love. Stand for truth. Brother Loxton wrote that along with a real long article. He believes it. Brad Beecham believes it. These guys believe it. Gentlemen out there, I believe it. I will go to my grave with this little white card laying on my chest, still believing what I've just told you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend.